Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Whitetail Rendezvous is pleased to announce a partnership with GoHunt.com. Who's GoHunt.com? Well, if you're a DIY hunter, you need the information at GoHunt.com/insider. Why? Because it provides 4,200 profiles, every unit, every species, and every season. Furthermore, they give in-depth analysis, interactive maps, unit access, and seasonal trends. Draws are very important, and they give you the most accurate information in the business. All this is available when you go to GoHunt.com/insider. Make sure you use promo code WR when you join Insider. You'll get a $50 gift card for GoHunt.com Gear Shop. Remember, when you become a member of GoHunt.com/insider, you're going to get a $50 gift card to Go Hunt Gear Shop. What's in the gear shop? The best gear that you can buy for hunting the West. All in all, if you're hunting out West in 2018, GoHunt.com/insider is where you need to be to get all the research information. When you use promo code WR, Whitetail Rendezvous receives a small commission from GoHunt.com. Hey, folks, we got a new sponsor. It's called Buckwild Coffee. What's so special about Buckwild Coffee? Well, a gazillion people go to Starbucks every day and drink coffee. Well, why shouldn't Buckwild Coffee offer you light, medium, or dark roast with free shipping? All you have to do is go to whitetailrendezvous.com, go to shop, and order your coffee, and I'll ship it out for free. Hey, thanks so much for visiting Buckwild Coffee. The best brew in the West, the best brew around the campfire, the best brew in the hunting shack, the best brew anywhere. Buckwild Coffee. Get yours today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Bruce Hutchin, and it is about 6:30 a.m. in Colorado, and I'm with Fred Eichler, and he's sitting out on the deck, and there's Spanish Peaks behind him. And if you don't know where that is, well, go on Google Earth, and you'll find out that Fred's an icon in the industry, and he's just fun. He's just one of the funnest guys that you'll ever meet, and he's like that whether he's packing out an elk or loading hay or just hanging out. And Fred was the first one in 2009 to take the Super Slam. That's all 29 big A animals with his recurve. Fred, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Bruce. It's good to be on your show.
Well, it is, and it's exciting, and we got a great day here in Colorado, and I just want to start off with, how did you begin your quest? It goes back to your hunting tradition from your family, wherever that came from, but you've done some things that a lot of people are dreaming, and they're still on their bucket list. So how did that all come together?
Man, that's a good question, and really, I did come by hunting through my family. Both my father and my grandfather were outdoorsmen, just like Michelle, my wife. As you know, her father started Muzzy Broadheads, so her dad was an outdoorsman as well. But everything I did, I wanted to do in the outdoors. So one of my first jobs was working in an archery shop. Then I worked for Bear Archery. I took a job managing an archery shop in northern Colorado, Fort Collins, Colorado, called Aerodynamics. Worked for a great guy there named Jim Widmeyer. And I was actually working for Jim when I heard that Chuck Adams had completed the Super Slam. And like a lot of bow hunters back then, I think that was late 80s, like, what in the heck is the Super Slam? And, I started researching it, and it was everything. It was all these animals. So to me, I was like, man, that is really cool. And at the time, I was shooting my recurve a lot, and I thought, I wonder if I'm physically tough enough and mentally tough enough and a good enough shot to try and harvest all the species in North America. Wouldn't that be a cool goal? Now, of course, I was making about $19,000 a year managing an archery shop, and I was making a few extra thousand during the winter months selling coyote and bobcat and pine marten furs. So that goal was very unattainable to me in my mind. So I thought, well, the only way I know to do things is work hard, try and save my money, and maybe go on one hunt a year for a different species. So that's what I started doing. I actually shared a small, and when I say small, it was a small little 1-bedroom apartment, and me and my buddy, it was like camping out because he had a cot on one side of the little room and I had a cot on the other side of the little room. But we would save all our money and spend it on hunting. So really, that was my goal, was just to experience different things. And I would definitely say that Fred Bear, Chuck Adams were large influences in that because I wanted to experience what they did. To me, it was never just like Fred Bear. It was never about the biggest animal. It was more about the experience, seeing the different places, meeting the different people. That was really the goal to me, was to at least see all 29 species.
And you talk about the traveling, and it's the journey. I call it the journey of the hunt, because so many times, when we're working, and I did most of my travel hunting when I was working, and you just throw it in 5 days. I remember I blew up to BC in 5 days. I took a mountain goat and I took a wolf, all in a 5-day hunt, which was just nuts. I mean, we were running and gunning. There's other terms for that, but we were just running and gunning. I had an outfitter. He was so good. We just packed up. We reached trailing a horse, and we were gone. And he said, "We're going to come back when we get done, or time runs out."
Oh, that's perfect.
And so you think about that, and it's the journey of it that listeners, we got Fred here, and he's got great stories and everything, but you just heard him say something. It's about the journey, and he learned that through Fred Bear, who with his journal and everything, wrote about the places and the people that he went with, and the campfires and everything surrounding the hunt. The hunt's a big part of it. What's that, Fred?
Fred Bear's field notes were amazing. I mean, he did an amazing job of telling a story.
Yep. And he did, and we're fortunate, to be able to have that information. And talking about traditional bow hunting, a lot of people, and I know you hunt with everything, but what's so special about a stick and a string?
It just feels more natural. And to be perfectly honest, some guys are like, "Oh man, it's because it's a traditional bow, and that's such a great feeling." And it is a great feeling, but it's also about, I think in a lot of cases, a traditional bow is a more efficient bow to have. So, I'd be fibbing if I said, man, I shoot a traditional bow strictly because it's, I think it's more of a challenge, because I don't think that. I think in a lot of hunting situations, a traditional bow is actually giving me an advantage. So I'm actually trying to go with an easier bow in a lot of cases. So, the fact that I can draw and shoot fast, it's quieter. I don't have to rely on as much technology. It's just a lot of fun. So, I kind of gravitate to the traditional bow because I think it gives me an advantage in a lot of different hunting situations. But I do like the way it feels. I like that. I like everything about it. I like that it's my own strength pulling it all the way back. I don't have a problem, and I also shoot compounds and pistols and rifles and muzzleloaders and everything. But there is definitely an allure to the longbow and the recurve, and in a lot of situations, especially in most situations where animals are harvested, 25 yards and under, I think you have an advantage with a traditional bow.
Let's unpack that a little bit. An advantage, the listeners here, they're buying, name a brand, Bowtech, name a brand, Bowtech or Matthews or any of the top flight great brands out there, and they are compounds. And then I had a guy when I first started bow hunting a long time ago. He said, just get a stick and a string, get a longbow, get a recurve, and learn how to shoot first. He said, then just move on from there. But that's what he did. And no, I never killed anything, with a bow, but I became proficient, at 20 yards, 25 yards. I became very proficient. And I think that's taking from what you said, a little word of wisdom, that everybody should at least learn how to instinctive shoot. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of like when my dad taught me to shoot a rifle. I mean, the first thing I learned on was a muzzleloader, a BB gun first, and then the muzzleloader, because Dad was like, I want you to understand, to me about the cap and the flash that goes into the powder charge, and that, to me creates the explosion, so to speak, that pushes the projectile out the barrel and the rifling, and so a muzzleloader was a great way to learn about how a firearm works. You know, to be so with traditional equipment or with archery equipment, I do think it's nice and all of our kids started with long bows or recurves, and then they could go their own way. If they wanted to still shoot the traditional bow, great. If they wanted to shoot a compound, if they wanted to shoot a rifle, you know, whatever they wanted to do. And all of them, kind of like us, kind of jump seasons. You know, they may start with, you know, during the archery season, they may use the bows and jump into the rifles. But, you know, for me, it's it's just such a fun way to shoot. You know, I tend to shoot more arrows when I'm shooting with a traditional bow because it's a little slower, and my arrow isn't going to skip off into the bushes, you know, 100 yards. I don't know. It's just something about it that just feels a little more natural, and it's a good way to, you know, it's a good way to start. And one thing I want to add, and you probably realize this, the average whitetail, if you just took whitetails, for example, the last time I did some research with Pope and Young, I think the average shot distance for a whitetail was 26 yards. So that's large bucks, you know what I mean? Obviously, that are 125 or over, but the average distance was 26.2 yards or whatever it was. It was right in there. And that's perfect traditional range. A lot of people, I think archery is, you know, man, I've got to be ready for that 40 or 50 yard shot. Really, to me, archery is a lot about that really close range shot and trying to, you know, overcome the animal's, you know, hearing and sight and smell and getting them in that really close range and making a good shot. But that lends itself a lot of times to traditional archery if somebody, you know, chooses to shoot that.
Yeah, point well taken. And, you know, listeners, just tabulate your own shots, your own kills on whitetails and see how far really they are. And, you know, give some thought. That's going to roll right into what I wanted to talk to you about, preseason prep. Now, you know, it's June now, and everybody's, you know, food plots are going in, and, you know, tree stands are being looked at, and they're cleaning up, you know, their shooting lanes and all that. But, you know, give us some advice for the whitetail hunters out there for preseason prep.
You know what? I can tell you what I do. One of the things I do is I run trail cameras 24/7 all year. It costs a little money on the SD cards and stuff, but, you know, and cameras aren't cheap these days, but it's worth it to me to have trail cameras in the field 365 days a year, because I can see when the whitetails are dropping their antlers. I can see when they're growing their antlers. I can see where the bucks are tending to hang out, which trails they're using, you know, how they're getting back and forth, whether there's agriculture planted or not, bedding areas that, you know, some they use all year. So one thing that I like to do for preseason, which is really all season, whether it's on or off, is I run trail cameras all year. I try to be super cognizant of scent when I can. I try to go in and check those trail cameras in the middle of the day when hopefully the sun will dissipate my scent by that evening when most of the animals are bedded down. So I'm also cognizant of when I go in there to grab the trail camera card. You know, I do like doing a lot of long range glassing. I'll set up with, you know, a spotting scope, binoculars, not only here in the West where we can watch whitetails sometimes from a mile away, but even when I'm out east, you know what I mean? I may be hunting Georgia. And if I can, you know, watch a field or, you know, watch a power line cut and things like that without being intrusive on the animals before season, you know, I'll sit back and do a lot of watching. So, you know, I try and learn and figure out as much as I can from a distance before I get in and introduce my smell, unnatural noise and things like that to the whitetails environment.
Now we're talking about 24/7 trail cameras. Now, are they for elk, mule deer, or everything, or you know, how does that work?
Good question. I use it for absolutely everything. But here in Colorado, especially southern Colorado, where I'm at, and really where you're at, we've got a unique situation here because we've got whitetail, mule deer, elk, bear, mountain lion, antelope, and turkey within a 15-minute drive. So, you know, of course, the whitetails tend to hang near the waterways, you know what I mean, the river bottoms, creek bottoms, things like that. But I will specifically set up cameras. Now, a lot of times I'll catch multiple species, but I'll have certain cameras set up, and I'll go, man, I'm really trying to watch whitetails, for example, with this trail camera, you know, or I'll set a stealth cam up over here, and this one's more for watching elk because it's in an area that the elk utilize a lot. So even though I'll have them set up for different species here in Colorado a lot, I will generally try and focus on a specific species. Like out east, sometimes I'll set up on water holes to see, when are the antelope coming in to drink water? What time? What am I looking at for bucks, for does, things like that. So I will literally utilize them all year for all kinds of different species.
So, folks, I guess takeaway one, whether you get a 40 or you're hunting multiple states, there's a way to do it to keep tabs on what's happening with your game.
Oh yeah, and same on public land. I mean, I still hunt and guide a lot of public land as well. Heck, right behind me, there's 1.3 million acres of wilderness area. So we still hunt not only state wildlife areas, but wilderness areas. And the same thing. Now, sadly, and it breaks my heart that a hunter or an outdoorsman would ever steal from another one. But I tend to hide trail cameras, and if I've got a stealth camera that's on public land or wilderness area, I'll try and stash it where people can't see it very well. But you can certainly take advantage of those on public land areas as well, no matter where you're hunting. And you know how it is when you're sitting in one tree stand or ground blind. I'm always thinking, man, I wonder what's going on over the hill. I know I should be in that other tree stand. I just know it. Same thing with my clients. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, maybe I should have put him over here. Well, the nice thing about a trail camera is then you can pull that trail camera card and go, yep, I should have been over there, or nope, I was in the best spot I could have been. So, I like them for that reason as well.
That's funny. Okay, we're gonna tune up our bows or our rifles in preseason prep on the whitetails. What other things should we be doing today to get ready? The hunt begins, 90 days. Elk hunting in Colorado begins, I think, 90 days. So, what should we be doing out here to make sure we're ready for day one of our hunting season?
Well, it's been browbeaten, and you've heard the expression, don't beat a dead horse. But, of course, being in the best shape you can be. I tell guys, you don't have to be a marathon runner. Some people make it sound like you have to be, in absolutely amazing shape to hunt elk. I think it's just important to be in as good a shape as you can be, because it's going to make the hunt more relaxing. My dad guides elk hunters, and he's 71 years old. So you don't have to be this fitness guru to go out and enjoy an elk hunt, but it's important to be in as good a shape as you can be. I also think like everything, and this has been gone over a bunch, is equipment. Make sure you've got equipment that's lightweight, durable, and it's stuff that you actually need. I see a lot of guys every year going with either too much stuff or not enough. So, lightweight rain gear, just things to make myself more comfortable in the field are extremely important. Knowing my realistic range. There's all kinds of things we can take advantage of today, as technology-wise. Rangefinder, to make sure I know the exact range. I mean, with a bow, whether you're shooting a recurve, a compound, knowing the yardage can be a very valuable thing, even more so if you're using a compound with pins. But if you even as fast as bows are today, if you misjudge yardage by 4 to 5 yards, you're going to miss that animal's vital zone and maybe even, completely miss the animal. So rangefinders, I think, are important, making sure they're matching up with what you're shooting. For rifles or muzzle loaders, every year as an outfitter, I see guys that overgun themselves. They come out elk hunting and, man, I just bought a brand new 338. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're from Michigan. Why don't you just bring that same 257 Roberts or 243 or 30-06 or 270, whatever it is that you've shot the majority of your deer with, that's accurate, that, you're not flinching, bring that. So, I tell guys, my boys have never lost an elk, and they shoot a 257 Roberts a bunch. And, they all started with, because it's their grandfather's gun, and that's what they all shot their first elk with. And I'm like, do whatever you're comfortable with. So, and also know your effective range. It's tempting sometimes, because everybody wants to be successful, to put a limitation on yourself. So I try and tell myself when I'm hunting this, and I also try and preach it to my clients when they come out. Pick your yardage, whether it's with a rifle, a muzzleloader, a crossbow, a recurve, a compound, a handgun, whatever you're hunting with. Pick the yardage that you're comfortable with, and stick to it. I think when mistakes in the field happen, or when somebody unfortunately loses an animal, a lot of times it's because we're trying to stretch that. Like, ooh, there's that elk, there's that bull I want, or that cow elk that I really want for steaks for the table. But I try and limit myself to that, that comfortable range, and I try and ask my clients to do the same thing.
Now, since you are an outfitter with Full Draw Outfitters, you own that operation, very successful operation, folks. You can go to Fred's website and check that out. But what do you do with a guy that comes in with somebody from Gunworks or a Best of the West gun, and he thinks he can shoot that far. He thinks, and I'm not trying to open a can of worms, but there's guys out there and ladies, and just because they went and spent the money for that type of gun, they think they can, reach out and touch somebody. How do you handle that as the chief ramrod for the outfit?
No, good question, man. And myself and all my guys have dealt with that situation at one time or another. There's a huge difference, as you know, between shooting a target and shooting an animal. So, again, I go back to it. Every person's different as well. I've seen guys that couldn't consistently shoot at 50 yards with a rifle. And, I've seen guys that could consistently shoot at 350 yards, and further range on steel plates. But the biggest thing to me is an animal can move, an animal can take a step. No matter how good of a rifle shooter you are, trying to dope wind can be extremely difficult. So one thing that we have almost everybody do is shoot before they go out hunting, whether that's an archery client, whether that's a muzzleloader client, whether that's a rifle client. And a lot of times a little realism of, okay, here's the distance that you should be shooting at. And fortunately, we're kind of the final say. You know what I mean? We pulled guys off animals that, it was too windy, and we didn't want them to shoot even 250 yards. So, yeah, it's such an individual thing that I have no problem telling somebody that's too far to shoot. We also added a wounding policy that, it's at our discretion because it discourages people to take shots that they don't think they can successfully make. So that's helped us out, I think, instead of guys, I'm just going to give it a try. We say, no, we're not just going to give it a try. This is going to be the shot that we're going to take, and, we're going to make a successful shot. So we have actually a very, very low wounding rate here, and I think a lot of it's because myself and my guides, put some limitations on guys. Even if they can shoot farther, we want them to be as close as we can be.
So let's give a little promo for Fred right now. We've been chit-chatting for about 20, 30 minutes. So tell us about Full Draw Outfitting. Tell us about your new TV show coming on. Tell us, where we can find you on social media.
Well, no sweat. We've got a fan page on Facebook, Fred Eichler fan page. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and we've got a new show. Basically what we've done, Bruce, is we're combining Predator Nation, where we show and teach people how to skin properly or how to call in all kinds of different predators, and Easton bow hunting, where we do try and show people tips on bow hunting with all kinds of different, whether it's a recurve or a compound, whatever you're shooting. And we're combining those shows into a show called Everything Eichler that will air all year, and it's going to be airing on the Sportsman's Channel. It'll be airing, I think, 4 times a week. But we're excited for that. That'll be coming up in January of 2018.
Wow. And Full Draw Outfitting?
Yeah, on the outfitting business, it's Full Draw Outfitters. I've been doing that for about 26 years. We've been guiding clients on a little bit of everything: whitetail, mule deer, elk, bear, mountain lion, turkey, and that's almost all in southern Colorado. We're permitted on about 1.3 million acres of wilderness area, and then we lease quite a few ranches as well. So it's a combination of private land and public land. And we have a good time. We work hard, and we make a lot of friends all over the country, which is really a fun part of it.
And Fred is booked too. He's taking bookings now to 2019. So 2018, folks, unless he has a cancellation, he's full.
Yes, sir. We stay busy, but that's what makes it fun. About 70 to 80% of our guys are repeat clients every year, and that makes it really fun because some of my best friends I've met through the outfitting business, and that makes it great. As you know, Bruce, the hunting industry is an awesome industry and a lot of good people in it. This is one of my up and coming lion hounds right here.
Is
Although
he?
he away from a lion that was in a tree and in January that our son took right behind the house here. This one, she got a little worried, but I think she's going to make it. We're working on her.
You're working on it. We're all a work in progress. That's for damn sure.
Really tough. She looks like a mean old lion dog.
Oh, geez. So, Fred, going back, I mean, you got story after story. What's one of let's do it this way. What's one of the highlights, and what's one of the ones that maybe you learned your hardest lesson?
Wow, good question. Some of the highlights for me, of course, have been seeing and meeting people from all over the country. I'm kind of a people person. Well, let me correct that. I'm not a. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan of people that enjoy doing what I do. Let's say that. If you're an outdoorsman, it doesn't even matter if you're a mountain biker, mountain climber, if you're a hunter, a fisherman. People like that I can relate to, and I really enjoy spending time with people like that because our stories are similar. It seems like I hate to lump it in one group, but to me, outdoorsmen and outdoors women just seem to be better people. I think they're more respectful. They seem to really appreciate the natural world that we live in, as opposed to the artificial one that man's made. So, the highlight for me has been meeting some great people and seeing some amazing country. That's really a blast for me. Some of the downsides to me of traveling and doing some of the hunts I've done is, man, I've had some close calls, some scary things that have happened that I puckered up a little bit. I've been charged by brown bears, grizzlies, leopards. I had an alligator bite me in the knee in Florida. That was no fun. So I've had a few crazy things that have happened as well. I had a pilot crash a plane one time in Alaska, and we were stranded in the Alaska range. Search and rescue came in and got us. So, I've had some crazy adventures, both fun ones and some that were a little scary as well. But there's been more than one time you couldn't have got a grease BB in my ass with it.
Here's a hot special for all Whitetail Rendezvous listeners. The Hunting Buddy app is giving away an all expenses paid free-range whitetail hunt at ABC New York Ranch this fall. You'll be hunting with NASCAR driver Spencer Boyd and the Hunting Buddy team, all the while being filmed by a professional film crew from Rush Outdoors, as seen on the Pursuit channel. To enter the contest for free, go to huntingbuddyApp.com. Click the huge Hunt Giveaway section tab and download the app. When you upgrade to the Outfitter plan, you get 30 additional giveaway entries. Hunting Buddy app is your best choice for staying safe in the woods with their patent-pending safety notification system. So lunar information including peak game, activity times, current and future weather forecasts, land ownership, hunting waypoints, group hunting, and so much more, all for free from Hunting Buddy app. That's HUNT apostrophe N BUDDY app.
Hammer, because I had a serious pucker factor.
Jeez. Tell us about the Alaskan. Obviously you walked away from that, but small engines, small planes and Alaskan wind and all that goofy stuff. What happened there?
I think those bush pilots are some of the best pilots in the world, but they fly in the absolute worst conditions. I mean, those guys fly in conditions that that a commercial airline would go, no way, we're not even taxiing down the runway in this kind of weather. So, those guys, because of the weather they fly in, I think it's extremely dangerous. But I had a friend of mine that we were moose hunting, and he left us in the field to head back, and he flew back and didn't come back, basically. And we found out later that he had crashed his plane. He had actually, either the cap had vibrated off on takeoff, or one of the guys had forgot to put it back on. But as he was flying, gas was siphoning right out his wing. And by the time he realized it, he went down and crashed. Real bad crash. He was, in critical condition and couldn't even tell anybody where we were. So that was a pretty scary situation. I've had a few times where planes have hit runways, spun out, and I've been in all kinds of crazy situations with boats and, planes, and I had a boat flip with me on a trip with White Shoe, the editor of Bowhunter magazine, one time, and almost drowned from that one. Again, we were stranded. Those guys didn't have a radio, and fortunately, some native guys that were up there hunting ended up coming down the river, spotted us, and helped us out, got us out of there. So, it's always an adventure. There's crazy things that can happen, hunting in your backyard. So, it's one of those things I tell people to always try and be as prepared as you can. That's all you could do. But don't let the fear of something happen prevent you from having some great adventures.
Yeah. When you and Dwight flipped, then you had to kind of hang out and build a fire and do all that whole stuff, didn't you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it was funny because Dwight was actually he was actually in camp when the boat flipped, and we were supposed to be back in the middle of the day, and Dwight had no idea at the time we had flipped. But he said, Freddie said, when you guys didn't show up that night, he said, I got excited because I thought, well, man, he must have shot a bear, and they're still out taking care of it. But he said when he woke up the next morning and we weren't back, he said he knew there was an issue. So yeah, there's been a couple crazy ones, Bruce, but that's always the fun, right? I don't know a hunter or an outdoorsman that doesn't have a story, or a crazy situation, whether it was ice breaking or a time where they maybe got a little turned around on an elk hunt, almost had a scary situation in a tree stand, or climbing up the steps. Or, there's all kinds of crazy things that can happen all the time.
Thanks for sharing that, because some people, are hesitant. I've been fortunate. You've been fortunate. Our friends have been fortunate to go out and mix it up and make it back to. I was talking to a kid named CJ Christopher James up in Calgary, and as a high schooler, he broke his C2 and he didn't know what he was going to do. And then getting into hunting, he realized, he could get back and mix it up, even though he had something come against him. And adversity is what makes us stronger. And as a hunter, I know you've seen guys that just, either will make or break the hunt, not because anything else, except they just won't push them through. So let's talk about the mental process, that adversity when we face it. Every hunt I've been on, there's been that moment. Are you going to quit or are you going to continue? I mean, mentally. You might not say it. You might not say it, but you're right there. So talk to me about that.
Oh, and that's a great point. And I think people in general, I think we're softer than we used to be. I look at Michelle's mother's. Michelle's mother took up bow hunting at 75 years old. She had been a rifle hunter, but she wanted to bow hunt, and she was out turkey hunting with us just 2 weeks ago in her late 80s. And I'm like, wow. You know what I mean? I've got a few aches and pains. How many does she have? And she's still getting out there turkey hunting. That's awesome. So yeah, I think a lot of it is just that mental toughness of, yeah, I may be cold, I may be uncomfortable, I may be hot, but I'm going to put that next foot in front of me. And I think in today's society, people are very quick to quit. I've had guys say, oh, I just can't make it up this mountain. I'm like, well, no, you can. We'll just take a break. And then you're going to take another step. And we'll take a break, and then you're going to take another step, and we'll make it up there. So I think that adversity, I think that pushing yourself, like anything, makes you. I think it makes you a better person, man, woman, or child, when you push yourself both physically and mentally. And for me, almost anything pushes me mentally, Bruce. I'm not real good at math, so there's a lot of things that push me mentally. You saw me trying to get the computer going, so. My wife would tell you that I push myself mentally every day.
Well, we all got strengths and weaknesses. So we'll just leave it at that. Right. So let's go back to whitetail. When you're hunting Kansas, you're hunting out of state whitetail. How does that work? Are you going with outfitters? Are you going with friends or DIY? Tell me about your hunts and how you get set up, because a lot of people send me emails all the time saying, Bruce, I want to go to X and hunt. What's your best advice? How do you do it? Why should you do it? Should you hire an outfitter? Can you do it on public land? All those questions that you get. So how do you do it?
Man, you're asking me some tricky questions. I'm going to slide back here. I know you said you couldn't see me earlier, so
you're good.
I'll move back. The shades popping out. Get back in the sun for you.
Yep, you're good.
An outfitter, don't get me wrong. I love going on outfitted hunts, and a lot of times I'll tell guys, if you don't have the time, but you can't afford it, an outfitter's a great way to save yourselves time. You know what I mean? If you don't have enough time to do all the research, hang the stand, set up the ground blinds, glass for weeks on end and see what the animals are doing. An outfitter's a great way to go. A lot of outfitters have semi-guided or non-guided hunts as well. And I've done them all. I've paid guys a lot less money just to have them say, "Hey, Fred, I've put in the research, and here's a piece of property in Kansas or Illinois that I have leased that there's good whitetails on. Now you may have to hang your own stands, but here's the property that you can go check out." They've done some of that foot traffic. Now I've also gone totally blind into areas and hunted public land and harvested whitetails as well. And there's advantages and disadvantages to all of it. It's all fun. But when I do hunt public land, I'll tell you that I try and get as far away from people as I can. I don't think people, sadly, on public land are as polite as they were back in my dad's day, maybe. You know what I mean? There was a certain amount of respect, whether you were duck hunting, people not setting up, putting a decoy spread 10 feet from you, Same thing with whitetails, guys hanging tree stands right next to you. So, although I think most outdoorsmen are great and respect each other, sadly, in this day and age, I think some people just weren't raised with that kind of respect, and it has to be taught. You know what I mean? They have to learn it. So when I'm researching public land to go on, I literally will take, and now I use a lot of those Google Maps and things like that, or I'll talk to local game wardens and biologists, and I'll try and find access points, and I'll try and get as far away from people as I can. Now, I'll also look at agriculture, bedding areas, CRP, that borders it, areas that whitetails may be bedding in. So part of the fun to me is like that chess game, figuring out where you may find the animals. And, if you just look at a big chunk of property, there'll be places where the animals are, and there'll be places where there's not very many. So I enjoyed that chess game aspect of it. So I would tell guys, really, technology, I take advantage of it. I also take advantage of talking to local wildlife biologists and game wardens. I've had a lot of success talking to guys and just saying, hey, out of the 3 management areas in your area, which one would you suggest I go to whitetail hunt? We're paying their salaries. So basically, game wardens, wildlife biologists, they work for the public. So I take advantage of that. And most of them are really good about giving you some information. Pope and Young is another good source of information. You can look, if you're after trophy animals, you can look and see, where most of the trophy animals coming from in this state or this region. So I try and research as much as I can before I go to an area hunting. If I go with an outfitter, I may also call a game warden in the area and make sure he's a good outfitter. I also ask for names of guys that aren't successful when I go with an outfitter. Every outfitter has that prepared list, Bruce, of the guys that had the best trip ever with them, and that guy's going to go, oh, this outfitter's the best thing since sliced bread. But I also think it's good to have a list from an outfitter you're thinking of going with of guys that weren't successful. Because if you get a good recommendation from a guy that went out, maybe paid his hard-earned money to go on a hunt and didn't harvest an animal, but he says, you know what? I had a great hunt. The guy was prepared. He had tree stands or ground blinds in the right area. I saw the animals, but I didn't harvest one because maybe the weather was bad. It just wasn't peak of the rut, or, they weren't hitting the agriculture, or whatever the reason was. But if those guys, the unsuccessful guys, have a good reference for that outfitter, well, then that's probably the outfitter I'm interested in going in. So, I try and get the little more background on that. So again, it boils down to nothing's easy. Everybody wants the, I was watching a commercial the other day, lose 20 pounds with this thing you put around your waist and it jiggles your muscles, and man, the weight just comes right off. You got to work for things. And, I think hunting's the exact same way. If you put in the research, whether it's on the computer or making phone calls, and then, of course, wearing out a little boot leather, I think you're going to be more successful.
It's interesting. I'm thinking back to one of your first comments when you started your Super Slam. You and your buddy. What was that?
You were going to say you commercial and bought that thing.
Funny boy. No, I didn't. That's bad on you. I have tried. The ab maker. Remember the ab machine?
Yeah, that's what.
Oh, that's bad. Hey, let's get back on track here, folks. Anyway, so you and your buddy were you working in Fort Collins and not making a heck of a lot of money, but said, I can do this. And I have people, they'll call me or whatever, and they'll say, Bruce, a sheep hunt's now $40,000 or more. A moose hunt's $15,000 or more. This hunt that much. Hunt with you. Some of your elk hunts are $7,000, I think. I mean, it ain't cheap, folks. I know a couple of guys. There are places 6,500 out in Kansas, for a 5-day hunt. It's expensive, but just as you did it, all 29, you didn't do it with a lot of money. I know, you've earned your money. There's no question about that. You've earned every cent that you got.
Yes,
so
sir.
how did
I did more?
Go ahead.
I did a lot of self-guided hunts. I did self-guided hunts for caribou, for moose, for Sitka black-tailed deer. So a lot of hunts. Again, just like I was talking about doing the research, and you could say I saved money. My wife would still say I spent some, but I saved. That's great, isn't it? I saved a lot of money. It only cost $1,000 instead of 12. But by doing the research and going out and doing self-guided moose, self-guided caribou, self-guided Sitka blacktail, self-guided for a lot of different species, I did save myself a lot of money. Putting in for the draws, there's some great hunting opportunities. You brought up an absolutely great point there. Sheep hunts are getting out of hand. When I did a lot of those hunts, they were half what they're charging now. But, at the same time, I've drawn bighorn sheep tags in Colorado. You know what I mean? I've drawn elk tags and mule deer tags in Utah and, different states. So by playing that draw game, man, you can really go on a lot of great hunts on public land for a fraction of the cost of some of the big, guided hunts. So, I encourage guys to do what I did, which was, save their pennies and go ahead and experience some of the self-guided, hunts on public land, because you can still, I've shot self-guided moose in Wyoming, self-guided moose in Colorado, because I drew the tag and it was a lot less money than going on a guided hunt.
So I guess the takeaway, folks, is, set your goals. Fred had a goal, and then he figured out how to get to it, and it took him a while. It didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't just writing checks. Now, there's some people out there, some of your listeners can write checks, and good, because you're working hard, and you'll write your check, and you go and do the hunt. Good. 90% of us can't do that. I mean, it just can't. So you have to just work through the process, and I've been fortunate, to take a few big game animals in my life, but that's okay. I've done a lot of other things that, didn't have anything to do with hunting. I fished a lot of different places. It's all by choice, but I liked how Fred said it, and maybe we'll kind of hit this for a moment. We're all outdoors people. We're on common ground. When everybody is listening to this is sitting around the campfire, we all have common ground. Throw away, the job title, throw away the checkbook. We're hunters, or we're hikers, or we're people who are using the same land. Your thoughts?
Oh, I agree. And that's where the respect comes in. You know what I mean? I've hunted public land where I saw somebody else, and I cut them a wide berth, and I agree. We're all on the common ground, and even hunters helping hunters. I think there's a lot of disadvantages to some of the social media today, but there's also advantages to some of the social media. And some of the advantage that I've seen is guys trading hunts. Guys being able to contact guys in different areas and getting advice. I've seen some beautiful things happen because of social media too, where people connect and help each other out. One guy says, "Hey man, I'm working my 8 to 5 and don't have the money. I've got a family. I can't afford to go out and buy a guided hunt in Illinois or Kansas, but I've always wanted to try and harvest, a deer in that state, and another hunter will help him out. Well, here's a great area to go, and or maybe I can, trade you out." So yeah, I think like you said, we're all outdoorsmen. I think it's all about sharing your knowledge, sharing your resources. You know what I mean? What you've learned. I've learned a lot from from people, and it's made me a better hunter. And that's why I think that's one of the reasons I'm so willing to try and help anybody that I can, whether it's through advice or, tell them where to go or encourage them to go on public land. Because you really can. There's still some great opportunities in the best country in the world to take advantage of hunting from Florida to Alaska on state and federal land.
Yeah, and you throw in the Canadian provinces, and they're pretty easy to get into, and to hunt, and to fish. We've got, all North America. It's just it's all the Serengeti to me.
Yes, sir. Yep, you can have your best hunt. Hard for squirrels. It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. Let's talk about Michelle, and she grew up in a hunting family, obviously with her dad creating Muzzy. But talk to women through Michelle. Talk about women in the outdoors and how that's just exploded over the last 10 years or so.
And I think it's great. Michelle, I've heard her talk to groups of women and say that the way she was raised up, she never looked at herself any differently. I mean, her dad took her hunting, and she just thought every little girl hunted. You know what I mean? She didn't know that, she was kind of a minority, as far as that was concerned, because her dad raised her to do everything her brother did, whether it was fishing or hunting or bow hunting. That's just what she did. So, yeah, women make some of the best hunters because they don't have that whole ego thing that guys do. They'll listen, they learn. Women make great shots. It's a lot of fun. We've taken a lot of fathers with their daughters, young ladies that come out here hunting. We've got a young lady here in camp now that actually wants to go shoot shotguns later on this morning. So I think it's great to see. I think it's important to continue growing our sport. As you know, sadly, the age of hunters seems to be getting older and older and not younger and younger. And that's something I'd like to see reversed. I'd like to see, more people getting out there. But I think as opportunities shrink, as it gets more expensive, it's tougher and tougher. And that's why I'd like to see a push towards, even more people and more land set aside to where the opportunity's there for everybody. And for more people, because I think it's very, very important, not only for outdoorsmen, but I also think for the strength of our youth, for them going out and seeing what the real world is about, that food doesn't necessarily come wrapped in cellophane in the grocery store. I have no problem with somebody that wants to go buy a hamburger or a steak at the store, but understand that by doing that, you're just paying somebody to kill your animal for you. Hunters just like to harvest their own animal and watch it go from field to table and take care of that themselves. So I think it's important that everybody sees that part of putting the meat on the table. But to your point, women, kids, I love seeing them get in the sport. I'd like to see even more of it. And my wife, she absolutely is as passionate about it as anybody I know. But that whole utilizing the animal all the way through is super important. And it's a great thing for families to do. Like my wife said, when we go to a baseball game, we're watching one of the boys play a game. When it's hunting, the whole family's involved. It's a sport. It's a way of life that the whole family's a part of, whether we're shooting frogs or whether we're going squirrel hunting. And my wife has always made a big point of thanking whichever boy harvested the squirrel that we ate that night, or the elk, or the deer, or the rabbit, or the fish, whatever it was, saying, hey, thanks, Jeb or Seth or Trent for harvesting the frogs. And because of you, we're having frog legs for dinner tonight. Things like that. So, I think it's, as a family sport, man, I think it's better than almost anything else, because most families that go to watch sports, they're not all active participants in it. Whereas hunting, fishing, and things like that, the whole family can do it.
Wow, Fred, we've thrown a lot in. We're almost to an hour, and I'm going to probably just cut it off here, because hopefully we'll be able to do this again, not during hunting season, but maybe before or after show season, and once or twice a year we can get together and just sit and chit chat, because you're an amazing person. So let's just end with this. Where does your enthusiasm come from? I mentioned it early on in the show, but folks, this guy's the real deal. People said, "Oh, you're just doing that for the film and tripping out the film and stuff." But the people that I've known who know you, they go, "No, that's just the guy's crazy." I mean, you're up in the middle of nowhere and you've killed your 100th whatever, and it's just as exciting as you're killing your first squirrel. I mean, that's something to behold. That's a rare thing, Fred.
Well, I appreciate that. The boys would tell you I'm super high energy. I embarrass them a lot. Heck, I embarrass myself sometimes. But I genuinely love what I'm doing. And whatever I'm after, I just put everything. I put 110%. I guess there's really no such thing as 110%, is there? But 100%. I told you I'm not great at math. 100% is all you can go, right?
Yeah, that's it.
I give it that 100% all the time because I genuinely enjoy being out there. And I've had some great people, some mentors. My dad always gets excited. I mean, like I said, he's 71 now, and he was guiding elk hunters with us this year. And guys were blown away. They were like, "My gosh, your dad's just, pops up in the morning and he's singing a song, every morning." And, so I came from a dad that, that was super excited about life and out there fishing and hunting. And I guess, you emulate or you a lot of that rubs off on you. And my kids are pretty excitable about hunting. My wife gets excited. I just try and be happy when I can. They say you make your attitude, right? So, I try and always have a good attitude when I can.
And you're at shows. I mean, shows are a grind during sow season, but there you are with a big smile and a handshake. I mean, that's impressive.
Well, I'm meeting great people that love to do what I do. So I wouldn't be that way if I was at a Democratic convention. I promise you that.
I wouldn't be there, Fred. What are you doing there, fool? Shit. Oh, well.
Yeah. So those are easy for me. Get to meet great people that love what we love. That's an easy deal.
And so, folks, we're gonna knock off Fred Eichler. Part 1 and part 2 will be after the season, and hopefully he and I'll be able to recap and talk about what happened during the season. And it's just been a joy. I've looked forward to this for a long time, and it's just been it's been fun, Fred, to connect this morning for tea and coffee.
Well, I've enjoyed it, sir. It's been great talking to you, and Bruce, thanks for what you do and being an outdoor communicator. I think it's great for people to hear the enthusiasm from people that love the outdoors. So I appreciate what you do, sir.
Hey, folks, I'm really happy to have Dave Barrett on the show coming up here next. And Dave has Pro Talk TV. Also, he's on Carbon TV with In the Rut. And Dave really is a conservationist, and at his heart, at his core, he's all about hunter recruitment and getting people involved of all ages, men, women, kids. Doesn't matter. He's interested in reaching out to people to get them outdoors. Yeah, it'd be all nice if they were hunting, but fishing, walks, utilizing the outdoors. And that's the biggest thing that we have challenging us in the hunting communities is we're not replacing ourselves. And we can do that with our family, but we're going to have to start reaching out outside our family. Not only teaching them and taking them on a hunt and putting them in the stand and watching them shoot their first turkey or deer, but getting involved 365 days a year, what it means to be a deer hunter. Think about it. Because I know you're sure going to like Dave Barrett with Pro Talk Outdoors on the next episode of Whitetail Rendezvous.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.